everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here today. Today's video is gonna be another favorites video. It's my concealer favorites. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about my favorite concealers. I don't know why, but it's one of my favorite parts of my makeup routine. It's one of my favorite makeup products to buy. Like, it really is close for me. It's like bronzers, and then I think second would be concealers. So, I'm very excited to talk about these today. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, make sure that you do that before you leave and that you ring the bell notification so that you can be notified every time I upload a video. Make sure that you're also following me on social medias right here down below. And I think that's everything that I already know. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with probably the most obvious one here today. It's not technically a concealer, but it is something I use in my concealer step. It is my Becca Undereye Brightening Corrector, and I have the shade light to medium. This is something I use like every time I do my makeup. It is beautiful. It is super, I mean, you can probably even see here in the pan just how emollient and wet and dewy it looks. Oh, I love applying this underneath all my concealers. It adds a level of coverage, number one, corrects my under eye dark circles. Also, if I have a more matte concealer over top of it, it still hydrates my under eye since I am quite dry. I love it. Can't live without it. Never will. I've gone through, this is my third cup of this. That's how much I love it. Okay, next, let's start with the light coverage and then move into the medium and full. I love all levels of coverage of concealer for different reasons. These are my lightest coverage concealers that I just love to use for every day, and often I'll use these. I won't put any other base product on. I'll just like use these to kind of under eyes, maybe spread it around my face a little bit, and that's it. Let's go ahead and start out. This is the RMS Beauty Uncover Up Concealer, and I have the shade 00. There are quite a lot of shades of this. It's in a nice pot, and I love this concealer. It's so emollient. It's such a thin formula. It really blends really nicely underneath my eye and just looks so effortless and looks like I'm literally not wearing anything under my eyes. It just looks a little bit more corrected, a little bit more concealed, a little bit brighter. I did want to compare my pot concealers as far as product amount they have in them. This has a lot of product in it. It has 0.20 ounces, which is quite a lot for a pot concealer because pot concealers tend to have less product in them because they are a like solid cream concealer. They will spread a lot more than just like taking out a doe foot applicator out of a tube and spreading that across your face. So I've had this for a long time and I cannot see the end of it, honestly. I've made quite a dent in it, but I don't know when the end will come for this one. It's gonna take a while, but I love it. It's something I use a lot during the summertime, just underneath my eyes with nothing else. It's great. Next pot concealer is the Glossier Stretch Concealer. I love this concealer. I have the shade G11. I also wanna pick up the shade G10 to have for the summertime because this one's definitely my winter shade. You guys, I love this concealer so much. It is a dry girl's dream. It is beautiful. It is so hydrating. I personally, people go back and forth on this quite often, and I have my own opinion on it as far as comparing these two together. The big difference is a lot of people don't use this because it has coconut oil in it, which irritates some people's skin, but for me, doesn't at all. Also, this one is quite a bit more expensive. This one's a little cheaper, and the Glossier has 0.17 ounces and the RMS has 0.20 ounces, like I said. So this does have the most amount of product in it, which I feel like kind of evens out the price a bit. Also, it is clean beauty. It's a clean beauty brand. So that's something else to consider if you're kind of wanting a product like either one of these and you're kind of between the two. Those are kind of factors that might matter to you. So, but back to the Glossier. I love this concealer so much. If I am on my driest days, I can put this on my face and it looks stunning. And as Katie Jane Hughes taught me, I often will take a small fluffy brush and use this basically as a tinted moisturizer on my face. It has a very light coverage. I personally think These are very close as far as coverage levels. They're both light coverage. I personally think the Glossier has slightly more coverage, just like a little bit. Not even like a whole half point, like a quarter of a point, if we were talking in point system of coverage. More than the RMS, but oh, there's a piece of mascara in my eye. That's kind of the difference, I think, between the two. If you're dry like me, if you like just a no makeup kind of look, yeah, this is definitely one you have to try. Next, I have a very underrated product here that not a lot of people talk about that I think needs a lot more attention. This is from the Ulta Beauty brand, Ulta Beauty's home brand. This is the Ulta Beauty Youthful Glow Concealer. And I have the shade Light Neutral. This concealer is so beautiful. It really reminds me quite a lot of the Glossier concealer, but in a tube version. I don't know if it's quite as dewy as Glossier, but it's very similar. Has a light coverage, has a slightly more coverage, I'd say, than the Glossier, but it is stunning. I think a lot more people need to be talking about this concealer. And Ulta Beauty, their home brand, is so affordable. I mean, how much was this concealer, honestly? It's $9, and there are 17 shades, 16, 17, one of those shades in the range, and since it's a light coverage, they're gonna work across a lot more skin tones. I think it's a beautiful range. If you haven't tried this, and if this is the kind of concealer coverage level and finish that you like, you definitely have to try this. Okay, next, moving into the more true light coverage, leaning into the medium, we have the Josie Maran Vibrancy Concealer. Now I have the shade Light. This concealer, again, is very radiant, very emollient, and I'd say it's not quite as dewy as the previous concealers that we've discussed so far, but it is just very hydrating. I think it'll work better on people with normal skin. I don't know about combination, depends on what level of combination you're at, but I think it will work on people not just with dry skin. So this is a beautiful concealer. I've loved it it's been a couple years since this has come out for sure, and I've loved it ever since. Okay, next up we have our first, well, technically our first, because the Ulta Beauty it's affordable, it's drugstore pricing for sure, but this is the actual first drugstore brand that we're gonna be talking about today. This is from Neutrogena. This is from Neutrogena. It is the Radiant Cream Concealer. This is so pretty. I love this. It just came out this year, I believe. Beginning of this year, something like that. I have the shade Light 2 Ecru. Sure. This is a really beautiful concealer. A lot of people have been saying that it's a dupe for the NARS Radiant Cream Concealer. I think it doesn't have quite as much coverage as the NARS, for me personally. But I do still very much like it, and I really like how thin it is under the eyes. It looks so healthy and beautiful. I think this would be great on mature skin, and I think it classifies as a medium coverage. All right, this is probably the truest medium coverage concealer I have, and this is the Nudestix Nudefix Cream Concealer. This is the shade 2, and you guys actually saw me try this on camera for the first time, right? Yeah, in my full face of Nudestix video that was a while back, but if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. I'll link it up here in the iCards. This concealer is so creamy. Oh my goodness, I just love this concealer so much. It just looks so healthy underneath the eyes. It's really creamy and hydrating without being too thick. It's just, it's so reliable. And I think it's a great everyday concealer for just your average woman on the go kind of a thing. If you're not like a full coverage kind of girl, you're just kind of like an everyday situation, but you still want to be covered and you're not into the light coverage. You want to be more like, I'm covered, but I'm not too covered. You know what I mean? This is the one for you. This will work really well across a lot of skin types because it's not super dewy. I think it really adapts to what your skin type is. I don't know why, but it does. It's really good. So this next little category, these are the concealers. I wouldn't consider them my fullest coverage concealers, but I also wouldn't consider them medium coverage. They're like a medium full. I know that's kind of weird, but it is what it is. So Next up is a classic, a cult favorite. It is the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. I have 2 shades here that I use really regularly, honestly. It's just one's my winter shade, one is my summer shade. They're great. I use Creme Brulee and Cannelle. Yeah. These concealers are a classic and a cult favorite for a reason. They look so healthy underneath the eyes. They look great on literally everyone. Literally everyone. NARS has a shade for every single person, I swear. And they've expanded this shade range time and time and time again. There's like, I mean, I'm sure there's over 30 shades at this point. They have 36 shades in this. It is crazy. There is a shade for you in the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer, and if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend that you do. It just looks so healthy on everyone. It looks so natural and beautiful. It's a classic for a reason. Next is the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Concealer, and I have the shade 4.5. I'm pretty sure because literally the shade numbers have really rubbed off the bottom there. Anyway, this concealer really surprised me. I tried it because the Armani Luminous Silk foundation is a classic. It's really beautiful. And so I really wanted to try the concealer when it came out. I think maybe beginning of, wow, I've been saying this year, this video, and it's 2021, it's not 2020. So all these came out. So the ones that I said came out this year, they came out last year. Like the Neutrogena, it came out beginning of last year, I think. I think this one also came out sometime in 2020. Yeah, but I tried it and I kind of just expected it to be whatever. It's a luxury brand and it's usually like, is it worth the price? Hard to say, but the Luminous Silk Foundation is such a classic. So when I tried it, I wasn't expecting a lot, and it has a really weird doe foot. It's like really wide and it doesn't pick up a ton of product on it. And it's like, it's just a weird shape. And it has like one side that pokes out further than the other side. It's just kind of strange, I don't know. But when I tried this, I was very surprised. This is a concealer that I don't know, I'd probably say out of, well, this and one other concealer, really, really, really surprised me in 2020 with how much I loved them. Loved them immediately. As I said, it's in this category that's like a medium full coverage. I definitely think you could build it up to full coverage. I just like a very thin layer of concealer underneath my eyes personally. But this concealer is so, so beautiful. It is a standout product for me. It is something I reach for so often, like I have to hide it from myself. I have to hide it from myself so I don't use it too much, and I use my other concealers because I forget to use my other concealers in this category because this one really took me by surprise this year. This last year, 2020, not this year, 2020. Anyway, it's so thin under the eyes. It's so healthy and glowy and dewy looking. It's very luminous under the eye, but I think that if you were more combination or even oily, if you set it underneath your eye, you'd be just fine with powder and you'd be good. But me, I don't usually do that, so I like it to look glowy. And it does. It's so glowy and beautiful. Ugh, I love it. Next, this is also, I think it's underrated. I've seen some people on YouTube talk about this before, but it's been out for a long time, and I think it's underrated because this is a hidden gem. It is the bareMinerals bareSkin Complete Coverage Serum Concealer. Now, this is a concealer that I recommend to my family members. I bought this for my grandmother, and she loves it. Shout out to you, Barbara. Let them know down in the comments how much you love this concealer because it's so good. It is so hydrating. It has great coverage. And the thing about this concealer that really shocked me when I got it is like I can do just the littlest dot and it spreads so far. Like the littlest amount will take you such a long way. It is crazy. It's so good. This concealer is so hydrating. It looks so beautiful on the skin. Even though it seems kind of thick, yeah, this is the truest like concealer that I have found that really does feel almost like a serum. It feels like there is skincare in it going underneath your eyes and hydrating your under eyes. It's such a thin formula as well. It's not gonna look thick or cakey. It spreads out so beautifully underneath the eyes. It's so underrated. If you haven't tried this, you really should consider it because It's really pretty. Also, in case you care, I have the shade Light. Okay, next up, we are in the full coverage category, people. The full coverage. Now, for me personally, my preferences as far as complexion, you guys know, tend to be more on the light coverage side. So I only have a few concealers to mention here in the full coverage category. And I found that a lot of full coverage concealers tend to be too dry for my under eyes. They're too, like Tarte Shape Tape. I can't with that. It's too crusty. It's too thick. Looks too dry. I just can't with those kinds of concealers. Now, these concealers are nice and hydrating, and they do have quite a bit of coverage. And that's kind of, concealer is where I like to add my coverage if I am going for like a full glam moment. Like if I'm going out and I want to look really covered and really concealed, I will probably go in with like a light to medium foundation and then add the coverage with my concealer. And I don't know, there's just something about if you have a light coverage and then a fuller coverage, even medium to fuller coverage concealer on underneath your eyes, it just makes your whole face look a lot more covered. Like you don't need to necessarily cover up like every little square inch of your face with full coverage. I think concealer is definitely where you can add that coverage and still get a really nice full glam looking moment. So that's kind of what I have to say. That's kind of what I have to say about full coverage concealers. Now these are the ones that I love. So I don't know if I would classify any of these as having more coverage than the other. They all are just so full coverage. So first up, this is the other concealer besides the Armani one that really surprised me and that I fell in love with so deeply in 2020 that I forgot about all my other concealers in this category for a while. It is the UOMA Beauty Stay Woke Concealer. You guys, this concealer, I have two shades in it. I have two shades. I have the shades Fair Lady T1 and Fair Lady T2, winter and summer shades, and they're not that much different as far as shade, but they do work really well for me, both of them. UOMA Beauty is a great brand. If you haven't tried it yet, you should definitely check it out. I also mentioned their foundation, my favorite foundations. They just come out with really interesting and unique and really beautiful formulas. I just love them. And also their shade range is ridiculous. They have so many shades. They have it separated into categories. So they have like, what's the lightest one? The very lightest one, the packaging is pink. And then this is the second lightest one, the blue. And then there are like 3 or 4 more categories with like 10 shades in each of them. It's crazy. There are so many shades in this range. It's ridiculous. But this formula is so beautiful. It's such a creamy, thick concealer, but it spreads so nice and evenly under your eyes, gives you a lot of coverage. This concealer, I literally need the smallest dot of. Like I will, under my eyes, take it to my inner corner and just go boop. And that covers my whole under eye because this thing is so full coverage. I mean, look at that. Oh gosh, you totally can't see. And it blends into my skin so well. But goodness, it is so full coverage. That just covered that whole surface area like real easy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's a little bit thicker in consistency, but I really think it blends out so beautifully, and I think it gives a nice natural finish. I don't think it's too dewy or too matte. I think it's a nice natural finish so that you could either set it or not set it, depending on what you prefer as far as finish. It's definitely customizable. Same way their foundation is. So it's great. These are the 2 concealers that in 2020 I was blown away by and couldn't stop using. So that's that. Next up, this is kind of a controversial one. This is kind of a controversial one. A lot of people did not like or really liked this concealer. This is the Tarte Creaseless Concealer. This concealer is thick, it is creamy, it is dewy, and it is full coverage. It is so dewy. I think you'll be able to see, yeah, totally. Just by me swatching it on the back of my hand, like there is a definite amount of reflectiveness to it because it is so creamy and dewy, and it definitely looks that way under the eye. And I personally don't mind it because, you know, dewy is my thing. But a lot of people didn't like it, and that's fine because, you know, not a lot of people are into the dew the way that I am, but that's okay. But, you know, if you want to get on board this train, feel free. It's a good place to be. So it is really full coverage. As you can see, I've kind of blended it out here. It's a little bit more like of a creamy emollient kind of a feeling concealer. It kind of reminds me of the Glossier texture in that way. The key with this is just to not apply too much. It's just to do a little stripe here, a little stripe here, and just blend it out. And I find also blending it out with my finger initially really helps to warm it up and press it into the skin. And then I take off and I make sure there's not too much excess product underneath my eyes, and it does not crease. It is, for me, it's creaseless. But a lot of people found it to be kind of creasy because a lot of people will just, like, you know, concealer everywhere on their under eye. And you can't do that with full coverage concealers. You wanna really like utilize the coverage level that these concealers have and make them work for you. Yeah, so I really like that concealer personally. It's great, it's really dewy. I love it when I'm really, really dry, but I still wanna be full coverage underneath my eyes. I think it's great. Also, in case you care, I have the shade 20N Light. So the last concealer is, I don't know, if I had to pick which concealer out of these was the fullest coverage, it would be this concealer. This is the Jouer Essential High Coverage Liquid Concealer. This sucker is so full coverage. I have the shade Custard. This thing is so full coverage. It is crazy. And it's been a standby for me for, I mean, a couple years now. It's been out for a couple years, yeah. And I think it's really beautiful, and I think it gives a nice satin finish underneath the eye, and I think that it lasts crazy well. Like it wears for such a long time. And I think it's kind of crazy. It's one of those concealers that it looks the exact same as when I first applied it at the end of the night for me. It's kind of wild. So, Jouer Essential High Coverage Concealer. It's beautiful. They have a great shade range. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this concealer. It's great if you are a full coverage kind of person. I think this will pretty much work across every skin type. It's beautiful. It's a nice satin finish. It doesn't look too matte or dry underneath the eyes. It also doesn't look too radiant. Very neutral, very natural looking. Beautiful. Not natural looking because full coverage concealer doesn't look natural, but it's a natural finish. So anyway, as you guys can probably tell by the fact that I have a lot more light medium coverage concealers than full coverage concealer favorites, that's kind of what I lean towards. And that's just me, because those are the concealers that I wear just on like an everyday regular basis. And these are like for events, being on camera, being in front of some bright lights or something. That's what these are for. And these are better for like everyday situations, regular life. So with all that said, those are my concealer favorites, you guys. Those are the concealers that I love deeply. And I hope to continue to add to that in 2021. So we will see with the concealers that I am trying out in all my first impression videos coming up, if I get to add any more to this favorites category. Okay. So that is everything for me today, you guys. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let me know what some of your favorite concealers down in the comments. If I didn't include them here, let me know so that I can maybe go try them out. And if you do like any of the concealers that I mentioned here, let me know how you feel about them so we can join together in our love for these concealers. Oh yeah, and let me know if you end up picking up any of these and what you think about them. So thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.